The snow was falling hard that night, the kind of storm that blurred the line between sky and earth. In a small cabin on the edge of Maple Hollow, Ethan Whitaker stood by the window, watching the wind claw at the trees. He thought it would be another long, lonely night. But then, through the swirling white, he noticed movement. At first, it looked like a shadow. But as it drew closer, Ethan saw her clearly, a German shepherd, thin, trembling, her fur heavy with ice. Behind her, stumbling in her paw prints, were 4 tiny puppies. Barely alive. Ethan knew instantly that if he did nothing, they wouldn't survive the night. Without hesitation, he opened the door. The mother dog hesitated, her golden eyes fixed on him, caught between fear and desperation. But when one puppy collapsed onto the porch, she nudged him inside and the rest followed. The warmth of the fire drew them in, and finally, the mother stepped across the threshold. That night, Ethan fed them scraps of stew and bread. The mother refused to eat until the puppies had their fill. Only then did she lick her wounds and settle near the fire. Ethan noticed the scars on her body, deep and cruel. She hadn't just been a stray, she had survived something far worse. He named her Grace. The storm raged on for days, cutting Maple Hollow off from the outside world. But for the first time in years, Ethan wasn't alone. Since losing his wife Emily 3 winters earlier, silence had been his only companion. Now, the cabin echoed with new life. The soft whimpers of puppies, the steady presence of Grace lying by the fire, her eyes watchful but slowly softening toward him. Ethan built a little bed for them out of an old crate and blankets. He found himself laughing when Grace chased a stick across the snowy yard, something he hadn't done since Emily's passing. For the first time, the house felt alive again. But peace didn't last. One afternoon, Ethan noticed tire tracks in the snow leading up to his driveway. That night, Grace growled for the first time, her ears sharp, her body tense. The next morning, Ethan found a note mailed to his fence post. "That's our dog. She's coming back." His hands shook as he read the words. Grace shrank back as if she understood. Ethan thought of the scars on her body, the fear in her eyes when she first entered his home. Whoever had owned her before had not been kind. He went to Sheriff Miller in town, who promised to look into it, but storms had stretched resources thin. Ethan drove back, anger burning in his chest. He had lived in grief and silence for too long. Now someone was threatening the one fragile piece of light he had let back into his life. He couldn't lose it, not again. That night, a brick shattered his kitchen window. Scrawled across it in black marker was one word: tomorrow. Ethan stayed awake, shotgun across his lap, Grace pressed against his legs, the puppies huddled together in fear. The next night, headlights swept across his yard. A truck roared up the drive. 2 men stormed the porch, shouting. Grace lunged, snarling with a fury Ethan had never seen. The door burst open. Ethan fired a warning shot into the air, but the men kept coming. In the chaos, Grace hurled herself at one intruder, teeth sinking deep, knocking him to the floor. Ethan wrestled with the other, his shotgun skidding across the floorboards. He took a punch that sent him staggering, but Grace stood between him and the attackers, protecting him with everything she had. Then, cutting through the storm, came the sound of sirens. Sheriff Miller's truck screeched into the yard, lights flashing. Deputies tackled one man before he could escape. The other bolted into the woods, leaving behind a trail too clear to miss. When it was over, Ethan collapsed by the fire, blood on his lip, his hands shaking. Grace pressed against him, the puppies climbing into his lap, as if sensing his need. Sheriff Miller explained, the men had records. Illegal dog breeding, fights, abuse. Grace had been one of their victims. And now she was finally free. In the weeks that followed, word spread through Maple Hollow. Neighbors brought food, blankets, and toys for the puppies. Grace became more than Ethan's dog. She became a symbol of resilience, loyalty, and survival. Ethan too began to change. He fixed the broken windows, but he also opened his door more often. To neighbors, to laughter, to life. He named the puppies Hope, Scout, Willow, and Ash, and Grace never left his side. On quiet nights, when the fire glowed low and the wind whispered outside, Ethan thought of Emily. She had once begged him not to close his heart. Even in grief, he hadn't listened, until now. Grace hadn't just saved her puppies, she had saved Ethan too. And in Maple Hollow, people would never forget the winter when a broken dog and a broken man found each other and healed together.